Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 15, the last week of a exceedingly unusual semester. I'm going to go ahead and try to do this lecture on my porch here. It's a nice day out, and hopefully it won't get too loud out here. Usually I have found the best way I can get my neighbors to either mow their lawns or start using their weed whackers or leaf blowers is for me to try to either do a teleconference or class on my porch. So far, the traffic isn't bad and the ambient noise isn't horrible, so we're going to give it a go today. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, so today, then, all about drones, and that's pretty much it. So I'll show you some of my own work. This is a picture I shot relatively recently. Again, looking for patterns of the trees in my yard. That's my front yard there, off of very busy 62nd Street here in Broad Ripple. I also took it out this morning and went to a holiday park and had some fun with the drone. I'd not been out to Holiday Park before. I checked the city regulations. I couldn't find anything where drone flight was prohibited because it's a city park, not a national park. It is prohibited in national parks. And of course, because of the quarantine, it was relatively open. So just a few people kind of sitting in their cars, and that was it. So I went out and did a quick flight, had some fun with the drone. Did some video. So what I'll talk about today is how to get started with the drones, how we should think about the drones as photojournalists, yeah, so without further ado, we'll get straight into the lecture. So as we like to say in photo editing we like to use the term elevating the work because that's what photo editors do. This is literally elevating the work. On the docket today, we're going to talk about why do it? Why do drone photojournalism? How do you get started? I'll take you through a quick demonstration, kind of a little mini, like 10-minute flight or less, and then just doing the work. How do we do the work, and why do we do the work? And I'll show you some good work that's being done using drones. Why do it? Well, a lot of people kind of like to nerd out a little bit about drone photography and photojournalism, and we'll talk about that part of it in a minute. At the end of the day, the drone is simply a tool in your toolbox for storytelling, period. The drone is considered disruptive technology. It's basically, that's a term that we use for anything that's invented that winds up being a game changer. And here's why. So just months, roughly almost 5 years ago, it was March of 2015, I was in a helicopter photographing aerials of I was on my way to go to photograph a airplane crash close to Norfolk Airport. So at the newspaper, we would, at great expense, rent helicopters. Flight time is hundreds of dollars an hour. Very, very expensive. We couldn't do it all the time. We just did it very rarely for big stories. On my way there, I did notice some thawing patterns in the ice around Norfolk. We just had a freeze, and now we were having a thaw. And I looked down, and I noticed these funny little kind of neuron or kind of spiderwebby patterns in the ice that we were seeing flying over freshwater ponds. This pond being at a golf course that you can tell there by the sand trap, and the guy who if you look closely, there's a groundskeeper right at the center bottom of the photo that I thought was kind of a cool picture. I showed this to you before in the intro, but again, this is just an example of the kind of pictures we would see from a helicopter and photographed from a helicopter. And again, the fees for renting a helicopter were not cheap at all. So again, this is disruptive technology because drones came by, and I currently bought my drone for roughly what that flight cost. It's useful on the resume to be drone certified. We'll talk about the Part 107 certification and basically the license. They don't really call it a license, but the permit to fly what they call unmanned air systems or drones. It's useful to have that on a resume. I mean, no one's going to hire you just because of that, but if you're looking for ways to be competitive, to offer just one more little thing in the package that is your professional brand, it's really useful to be able to say, yep, I know how to fly drones. And that's just one more thing that you bring to a news organization when you're looking to be hired. Also, why do it? It's kind of fun. I can kind of see why people nerd out about this because it's just it's really enjoyable to successfully pilot these small pieces of aircraft. So it's clarifying to think about what drones are and what they're not. First, what is it? Well, you can use drones for, like I said earlier, compelling storytelling. It shows perspective. It certainly shows sense of place. So again, hearkening back to some of the sense of place exercises and discussions that we had back in intro and really all the way through your time in the photojournalism sequence, it's a really great way to show sense of place, the context, the environment. Also, having the drone images as part of your storytelling, it adds visual variety, or it's also a very handy way to get B-roll for your video or visual variety for your photo series. What it isn't, a lot of people make an awful lot about drones and drone photography almost as if it's an end to itself, and it is not, nor is it a crutch. You don't want to rely on drones to be the only thing telling the story in your work. It is a way to improve. It is not rather a way to improve otherwise mediocre storytelling approaches. If you don't have a good story shot with your other, if you don't have a good story put together, the drone footage or the drone images aren't going to necessarily make your story better. We've seen drones overused sometimes, and what it isn't, it's not easy. It takes a lot of practice to be proficient when it comes to flying drones. Probably a month ago, I would not have felt like I was sufficiently proficient to fly the drone around the ruins there at Holiday Park, like you saw earlier. It took a little bit of practice for me to get comfortable enough to be able to fly the drone without worrying about crashing it. Getting started. So first, you have probably, if you're going to get involved in drone work, you probably should consider making an investment in a drone or some sort. And when I talk about drones here, we're essentially talking about rotorcraft. There are other types of drones that are like fixed wing. They're basically airplanes. In most cases, photojournalists are using rotorcraft. They're using what they call quadricopters, 3 and 4 propeller. It's a tricopter, I guess, if it's a 3 propeller, but 3 and 4, a multi-propeller hovercraft, basically. If you're going to invest in a drone, there's a number of options. The biggest drone manufacturer, and probably the one that dominates the market, is DJI. They are Chinese-based. They're a Chinese-based company. They offer really great software. The software is head and shoulders, I think, above other makers. They have really amazing stability and GPS control. Their cameras are really, really good. and their general technology is better. This company, DJI, actually considers themselves not a drone company, but they consider themselves their own paradigm, their own mission statement within their company. They think of themselves as a camera company, as a camera manufacturer that just happens to be, these cameras happen to be mostly attached to drones. So this is a professional's choice. I find their pricing slightly pricier than the other makers of drones that I'm going to show you on the next slide. It's a little bit more. I'd probably say that it's worth it, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Okay, so other alternatives to DJI, and there are way more alternatives that I have space to list on this slide. Autel is a really good, that's probably, I would say, their second place to DJI, and maybe tied with DJI in some ways. Autel makes drones that are a little bit less pricier, in Gannett's estimation, I was talking to Andy Scott, who's the head of the drone program for Gannett, and he said he's actually converting to Autel from DJI because DJI's software is very restrictive. It'll lock out, sometimes incorrectly, if it is close to an airport or if the GPS is telling them that where they are is not okay to fly. So Andy got tired of messing with that, and he's gone to Autel rather than DJI. Other ones include Hubsan, Unique, and I love this name, Genius Idea. These three makers offer what I would consider good starter drones, and Autel actually has a professional model that's kind of equal to the Mavic 2 Pro that I want to show you in a couple of slides. And that's the one that Gannett is using. It's a pretty drone. Again, these are good starter drones. They tend to be less money. So getting started, I'm going to take you through, and DJI has way more drones than this, but I'm going to take you through the drones that DJI offers, just for the sake of not having 50 slides of all these different drones. This is not an endorsement of DJI. What I'm simply showing here is how much drone you can get for the money. So I'll start off with the Mavic Mini. So what you're seeing here is the Mavic Mini. It is under $400. It is about if you want to get a bundle, it's about $500. That comes with a controller, extra batteries, some replacement props, propeller guards, things that would let you fly inside and not damage your propellers if you impact a wall or a tree. Just a nice safety thing. So, for a little bit more money, you can get, so for about $500, again, roughly the per hour rental fee for a helicopter, you can get a pretty good drone. This is the kind of drone that I have. As I'll mention, you don't have to register this drone because it is so small and so light, it falls below the requirements and the minimums for the FAA to actually have you register the drone. Next one up is the DJI Mavic Air. That's about $560 if you just buy the drone, and upwards of $700 if you're able to get a bundle. Slightly better camera, performs a little bit better, roughly the same time in the air. By the way, the Mavic Mini will get you about 30 minutes in the air. The Mavic Air, roughly the same, I think probably a little bit less, maybe 20-some minutes in the air for your battery power. The Mavic 2 Pro is probably the professional's choice for people who are, doing drone photojournalism work. It has the best camera, the best hovering capability, It's a good sized drone, but still fairly small. It's $1,200 for the drone only, and $1,400 if you get a bundle. So again, so quite a bit more money than the Mavic Mini, which I bought, but still, what's that? That's roughly the same price of a pretty good zoom lens, right? So this is still a fair amount of equipment for your money. The Phantom 4 Pro is what they considered a true professional grade drone. It's big and beefy, and it can carry some payload beyond just the camera that's it's equipped with. $1,600 for the drone only, and another couple of $100 for the bundle. A lot of people prefer the Mavic 2 Pro to the Phantom Pro, despite the price differential and all that it offers. Considerations. Obviously, your budget. With me, I am on a professor's salary, and again, I'm not going to pay a whole lot of money for a drone. I can afford the Mavic Mini, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I did decide to go with DJI rather than the cheaper drones because of what I need. I'm an instructor. I'll be instructing people how to use drones, and again, integrating this into my classroom material. So I need to have probably at least reasonably good software, a reasonably good drone, and the Mavic Mini does just fine for that. There's cheaper drones than the Mavic Mini, however, they are much harder to fly. Their software is not quite as good as DJI's. Their hovering capability is not as good. GPS is not as good. They're easier to crash, and there went your savings. So yeah, these are all considerations. What is your budget? What are your needs? And that cheaper is not always better. Getting started. So the Mavic Mini is literally, so as you see there, 250 grams is what your drone has to weigh, 250 and up to 55 pounds or 25 kilograms. That's where you have to register your drone with the FAA. It's really easy. It's really cheap. You do it online. They give you a number. You just stick the number on the side of your drone, and you're good to go. The Mavic Mini is, so they're asking for 250 grams. The Mavic Mini is 249 grams or 248. It's a little just under the limit for where you have to register it. I'm still going to register mine, but yeah. So the other thing that's a little bit more involved than registration is the remote pilot certification. You only need to do this if you make money off the drone. So if you're a student not making money off your drone, you don't have to get the remote pilot certification. However, like I said, it looks really good on the resume, and it is highly recommended here by your instructor. So for if you're a hobbyist or just using it for recreational purposes, again, you don't have to worry about it. So to become a pilot or to get this certification to become a pilot for unmanned, for remote, what they call a remote pilot or unmanned air systems, you have to be at least 16. You have to be able to read, write, and speak and understand English. You have to be in reasonably good medical condition to safely fly a drone, which means you're not going to pass out, or maybe if you have certain conditions where you might be prone to a blackout or a seizure, that would probably prevent you from flying a drone. And otherwise, if you can just stand there and see the drone, and you're able to do it, you're perfectly okay. But last but certainly not least is you have to pass the aeronautical knowledge exam, or what we just call the drone exam. So, the the requirements for the remote pilot certificate. Once you have it, you have to keep it in your card. You saw my little picture there. I showed you my card, and you'll see it a couple other times. It has to be easily accessible by the remote pilot during all UAS operations. I just keep mine in my wallet. I have not been approached by an FAA representative yet, but I could be. So it is valid for 2 years. You have to retest and recertify every 2 years. You have to go somewhere to take these exams, both the initial big remote pilot exam, also the shorter and easier to take exam that you do every 2 years to recertify. Things to keep in mind, well, obviously during the quarantine here, most of the testing facilities that are used to do these exams are not open. So that's a consideration. Also, in our current lamentable state of politics, during government shutdowns, the FAA shuts down as well, and they won't be able to process anything that you send them via the exams, either the initial or the retests. So, what is on the exam, you're probably wondering? Well, it looks something like this.
Applicable regulations relating to small unmanned aircraft system rating, privileges, limitations, and flight operation, airspace classifications,
Okay, so as you can see, that's quite a lot. Bottom line is it's a pretty comprehensive exam. It's the FAA's opinion that if you're going to be a remote pilot, you better take a written exam and be a remote pilot. So there's a lot of stuff on the exam about how you handle a small drone, some considerations about the weather, quite a lot that's on the exam about the sectional charts and finding whether you can fly or not, depending on how close you are to an airport or other restricted areas. And it handles way more stuff than that. So as you can see, there's a lot there. It is doable, and the bottom line is you only need a 70% or higher to pass. You can train for this exam in a number of ways. As you know, there's a class on campus where the FAA Part 107 drone exam is part of the class. It's maybe the first third of the class where you're just training for the exam, and certainly the people that get through that class are qualified to take that exam. The fee is $150. You have to pay that fee each time you take the test, so it's desirable if you want to pass it, you pass it on the first time. Otherwise, you have to pay $150 again, and you have to wait a month between the attempts that you make to take that test. How do you get trained again? Well, we have that class. There are books, there are audio books, there are video courses, things that are online. You can be involved in an organization like AMA. It's not the American Medical Association. It's actually the Aeronautical Modeling Association that's located just outside of Muncie. The Ball State NPPA chapter had a meeting there. I guess it was was it last semester? No, one last semester was last year. They hosted. They're good friends of the department, and they do training out there as well. So what I did is, you see it right there, the FAA Part 107 audio book. It is a audio book that is, I got to say, it's hard to listen to. So as you know, I commute between Indy and Muncie most days of the week. From 8 to 10 hours a week, I am pretty much sitting in my car, not doing much of anything productive other than driving. So I was able to kind of use that time to review for the Part 107 exam using this audio book. And again, it's not a perfect way to, I don't know that I recommend it unless you're in a situation like mine where you're driving a lot and you're trying to find ways to multitask and get things done. I do recommend, finding things online that are very, very inexpensive. Or again, like I said, there are other traditional ways, traditional class environments that you can learn this. What to consider once you take flight? Well, the flight times are pretty short. Like I said, the Mavic Mini will go for about 30 minutes on one battery. The Mavic Air, the Mavic 2 Pro, and others, again, have very limited flight life, usually about in the 20-minute range, sometimes 15, sometimes 25, depends on the aircraft. So that's the thing. You're not going to be flying for very long, and you really want to plan things out before you take off. And again, that's part of the FAA exam. They talk about the pre-flight planning and whatnot. Other things, people don't like drones, period. There's a kind of a feeling of distrust. There's privacy issues. They worry about their privacy. It makes an obnoxious noise. When it takes off, it kind of sounds like a hornet's nest, or it's very loud. It's kind of a disconcerting thing. It scares the dog, right? I think my dog's gotten used to it. There's safety worries as well. People think that the drones are way more dangerous than they are. They're not as dangerous as they think, but they are in fact dangerous. If you have, they can certainly cut something or cut people. If they come in contact with the propellers, you could, if it falls, it could cause an accident on the highway, and that's why the FAA won't let you overfly people or active roads, wherever there's people gathered, you cannot fly over them unless you get some sort of waiver, or unless they are kind of part of the drone team, or they're somehow working with you as the drone operator. Still, though, you need permissions to do that, and that just doesn't happen. Finding places to fly can be tricky. As you know, you cannot fly, or you may or may not know, but you can't fly on campus. That is for a couple of reasons. One, the campus administration says that they don't want students or staff or faculty to fly on campus without prior permission, and it's really hard to get that prior permission. But also, in addition to their permission, you really need the FAA's permission. Ball State resides just inside the 5-mile radius from Muncie Airport. Muncie Airport has a tower, and that means it's in a certain class of airspace where you cannot fly within a 5-mile perimeter of that airport. So Muncie, rather inexplicably, because I can't imagine how they have enough air traffic to warrant having a tower. They do, however, have a tower, so we are in that class of airspace. What I'm more concerned about than Muncie's airport, and again, I've never seen an airplane overfly Ball State in the almost 5 years I've worked there. What's a bigger deal to me is the fact that Ball Hospital is right there on the campus boundary, and it has a helipad. Medevacs, medical helicopters come in at all different directions, and they come in low, usually. So drones can only go 400 feet AGL, above ground level, and it would easily be imaginable that it could be in the way of a helicopter, or come close to a helicopter, and that's a very, very serious thing. So that's what I actually worry about way more than the damn airport, is the medevacs and Ball Community Hospital being right there. So, yeah. Long story short, it can be tricky. Again, this kind of illustrates that it can be tricky to find places that you can fly. Other things, considerations, Bad actors. Hobbyists don't have a good reputation with drones. They can be, they're sometimes prone to showboating. There was this one really lamentable video where this guy was flying his drone like into boxcars on a moving train and buzzing the cab of the train. You know, it's and these are the kinds of things that you know give drone operators a bad name and can be problematic. So so that's so that aspect is something to consider. It is generally a good idea to bring a spotter, a second person. Gannett, I don't know if this is still in their requirements, but at a certain point, Gannett was having two people go out every time they flew a drone. One person to pilot the drone and to make the pictures, and the second person to just handle onlookers or people that walk up and ask questions, or just to help spot the drone and keep an eye out also for possible conflicts or other targets or problems that are in the air. It's a good thing to have. It's a good practice if you can do it. So yeah, it's generally advisable to bring spotters. So again, practice always makes perfect. I don't know if perfect is possible, but certainly you'll want to be very comfortable with flying the drone because essentially you're multitasking. You're not only piloting an aircraft, but you're also taking pictures and making photography, hopefully, you know, not crashing the drone or creating a problem. So you really need to be comfortable using the drone. I will show you a demonstration that I videotaped earlier this weekend that shows you, that takes you through a very, very brief flight. Essentially, you're multitasking. You're trying to pilot your drone, you're trying not to crash it, you're watching for things around you, and you're trying to make photographs. That is a lot, especially if you don't have a lot of experience flying drones. So one of the things that I try to do as a drone photographer is just go out and practice with the drone. Um, it's a nice day out here. The wind is what I would consider light and variable. Um, Family's out playing with the dog. It's just a pretty day out here in Broad Ripple, and we haven't had many of those. So I thought I'd run out this Saturday and try to show some of these. This is what it looks like. These um, arms fold out as so. The propellers are very light. The whole thing is very light. This thing is actually about a gram less in weight than what is required for me as a drone pilot to register this drone. So I'm still going to register it anyway because I'm that guy, uh, but uh, but I don't have to register this drone with the FAA. So there is a small what they call a gimbal guard. That's to keep you from beating up the camera. You take this off and you can see the camera right there. You turn it on, it makes a cute noise. Propellers move a little bit, it indicates that it's on. And I can also operate the drone, like I have to operate the drone from a console, from a controller. This is a controller. You fold out the antenna like that. You open this up and you actually put your smartphone inside it. There's a smartphone app available for both Android and iPhones, and we'll just fire it straight up. Okay, now it's connecting. Took a second there. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the video. Okay, so now the video is recording. You're seeing a beautiful shot of my own laptop. Here's my dog. Here's our yard. There's me. And I'm going to walk it out to the middle of the yard. You can buy DJI will sell you a little fancy little landing pad. I didn't want to pay $50 for that. I'm using a pizza box instead, where it's going to kind of mark where its home is. We like hot box here in Broad Ripple, so I'm going to walk this out. Now I can land this in the grass, and I can take off from the grass. It's not awfully great for the propellers to be whacking on the grass, so I do use that little pizza box again as a home base, and it's something to kind of mark the territory and let me fly around it. So I'm going to move this right to the edge of the table. Hopefully it's aiming for the most part at the pizza box, and I'm going to walk out here so you can see me. And I do a quick pre-flight check. So it has a return to home function. If it flies out of the range of the Wi-Fi, it'll immediately turn to home. If something happens where it just loses connection, or something goes wrong with it, or I can just hit a button if I run into trouble, if there's a hawk or something, which I'll tell you about in a second, it'll come right to home. So I've done a pre-flight check. It seems to check out reasonably well. And I'm going to go ahead and take off. I have no way of live streaming, by the way, with the DJI Maverick Mini. The more expensive models I can live stream with. Once again, professor salary. So I'm going with the workarounds. And we're taking off. So there it is. It's flying. It hovers. It hovers really, really well. And that's another reason to buy DJI. DJI, their software, their apps are just really, really incredible. So walk around, look at it, make sure it's doing fine. And I want to go ahead and so one of these two tiny sticks here handles vertical movement and side to side. I'm sorry, vertical movement and spinning. So this handles a vertical movement here on the left. I press this up and it's going to ascend. All right. If I press this to the side, it'll turn. So it's turning really fast. There's different settings in terms of this movement. Right now it is on position mode, P mode. I'm going to, and you can put it in sports mode, which makes it even respond faster. I'm going to put it in what they call cine smooth mode, C-I-N-E smooth, as in cinematic. And it makes nice, graceful movements. So we're going to leave it there for the duration of this demonstration. I'm going to walk over here and take a good look at it. And I'm going to orient it toward the house and align with the street. Right there. So one of the things that you wind up doing with the drone is just practicing with it. I will say it's harder than it looks. Try not to step in dog poop here. Yeah, so it's harder than it looks. One of the things I do is just drills. I move it forward, I move it to the side, I move it back, and I just make a square over and over again. It seems boring. It is boring, but again, it's one of those things where just like you have to get used to kind of knowing your camera, right? It's getting buffeted by the wind. Notice, I don't know, I think it's off of I think it's off of this camera, but you can certainly see that it's being bounced a little bit by the wind, but it's holding still really nicely. So, so that square thing I do this, move it forward, move it to the side. You can also aim the camera down on the controller, and I'm going to take the gimbal and aim it down. And there you can see Pam's raised flower beds. I once crashed a drone that I had trying to get pictures of those raised beds because I took my eye off the drone and I was fiddling with the camera so much. I basically screwed up. My mental model of where the tree was wrong. It was off. I wasn't really watching the drone. I was watching the controller, and I flew it straight into the damn tree. And that became a very expensive lesson. So I bought this drone. I bought insurance for the drone, and so we go. So again, squares. So let's do this. Let's go to the side. Don't fly into the tree. Avoid the tree. Come back. To the side again. So this seems easy. It is easy until you start getting disoriented and forgetting where the front of the drone is pointing. And that is a big deal in photography, as you might imagine. Let's buzz just so you can see it. Hey, how are you? Good. I'm doing a demonstration for students. Yeah, yeah, the thing's actually taping. Um, but yeah, you can stay there. And let's pull it back. So one of the things I have to do, I'll talk to you as well. One of the things I have to do is just do these drills. I just do squares all the time. So let's raise this a little bit so I don't run into trees. I hate that. Let's back it up a smidge. Run it out to the corner. So you basically turn the thing around and try to do the same square. So yeah, let's just do it this way. Not a perfect square, but again, getting very, very comfortable with the controls. And then back over this way again. All right. The sound is a little disconcerting. It sounds like hornets or something. Zelda doesn't love the sound. Okay, so I've turned it at 180 degrees. It's facing away, and then you just do the same thing. Don't run into the tree. Don't run into that tree either. The other thing I like to do are figure eights, which are really, really, really hard. And let's lower it a little bit, turn around, and we'll do the figure eight right over the pizza box. It's a really sloppy figure eight, but I will say that figure eights make you really good at turning. When I used to fly in aircraft, they were a whole lot easier. I'm pretty sure if I had to fly a helicopter, I'd kill myself or someone else, or both. Anyway, so that's the figure eight. So I don't run my battery down or the iPhone's battery down. Oh yeah, let's take a picture. And let's bring him up. Stand 6 feet away. Yep. And I'll keep the video running because I'll just smile for a frame grab. So we're going to go ahead and land it now. And let's see if I can. I've been pretty good at landing on the pizza box. This is a. We should get compensated for product placement from Hotbox, but let's see. All right. One thing you do if you have open sunlight is you can watch a shadow and kind of keep an eye, and there it goes. So continuing to talk about things to consider as you're flying. Again, proficiency is really important. There's no substitution for just practicing flying the drone. Other things to be mindful of: be careful about neighbors. Respect the boundaries of where you are. I have a very happy bird over there. Don't fly over your neighbors' houses. This probably seems really obvious, but again, based on what I said earlier about the problems with drone hobbyists, yeah, there are some really bad drone neighbors out there and some really bad drone flying out there. So do what you can to respect boundaries. As you can see, I have a very good relationship with my neighbors, and they're always welcome to come over and watch me. Probably when the quarantines are lifted, I'll probably let them take over the controls and play around with it a little bit, under my supervision, of course. Be mindful of obstacles. I told you about the lesson learned the hard way, where I kind of lost track of where the tree over my head was, and I flew the drone straight into it as I was fiddling with the control panel. So remember where obstacles are, and again, if you have a spotter with you, they can kind of keep an eye on things. Other threats. It was probably about a week and a half ago that I was flying the drone, and I noticed a hawk starting to circle the drone and starting to look a little bit menacing. It was clear that the hawk had identified the drone as some sort of prey, and it was about to come in for the kill. I immediately flew away and under a tree, and the hawk lost interest. But that is actually, as it turns out, a really big problem. Hawks and other birds of prey, especially being that they're very territorial, they will go after your drone, and they can not only crash your drone, but they can also injure themselves. Apparently, the countermeasure for the hawks, and this is kind of interesting, is to take the drone and fly it straight up fast. Make sure that the hawk is not over the drone, but when it goes into immediate vertical ascent, that is not acting like any of its prey that the hawk has ever seen before, and the hawk basically understands that, all right, this is not prey, and I'm going to move on. So obviously, and of course this is in the FAA regulations, you shouldn't overfly people or cars or other houses ever. Also, you need to maintain visual contact. Now, you can go up to 400 feet with the drones. My drone is so small, I think if you went that high, you wouldn't be able to see it. So I don't tend to fly over about 150 feet with that tiny thing. No matter what, though, you should always maintain visual contact, and that again is where, when having a spotter with you, would be helpful. Flyaways, that is a really dangerous situation, and again, that is often determined by distance between the controller and the drone. You always want to be close enough that you don't risk a flyaway when the drone loses the Wi-Fi connection, what they call the uplink, to the aircraft. When you have a flyaway, you do enter into an unpredictable situation, and also the drone is really hard to retrieve. We've heard of situations actually here in the neighborhood where a drone would fly into someone's property and they had a hard time getting the drone back. So these are all things to keep in mind. And back to the why drones. What's a drone good for? Well, it's just about getting a shot, or the shot. It's not, again, as I said before, it's about storytelling. This drone, again, helps you show perspective. It helps show the environment, the context, sense of place. You can put a camera in places that you can't physically get to. And again, as I said before, visual variety of images and views. This helps you engage audiences with interesting visuals. When you're doing drone photography, I would say that just about all the rules of photography apply to drone photography. You want to be very mindful of the light. The time of day matters. It is generally helpful, again, to fly if it's either early morning or late in the day, late afternoon, or early evening, but not past sunset. The weather matters. You want, relatively clear skies, of course, and low winds. All compositional rules of good photography apply, again. So think of leading lines, think of patterns, think of color, contrasts. So keep all those compositional rules in mind that we learned back in Journalism 235 and Intro. I highly suggest shooting in RAW. DJI drones will allow it. Most drones will. Shooting in RAW will help you do the edits afterwards. I'm about to show you some pictures that Ryan Sparrow photographed with the drone. He does heavy work editing on post-production, and his pictures are really quite beautiful. So shooting in RAW gives you the most opportunities to edit. If you're shooting video, it's best to move the aircraft and camera very, very slowly and in a linear way. No sudden jerking motions. And again, keep it graceful and also keep it short. I'm going to show you some examples of good drone work. Rachel Ellis, many of you know her. She graduated in the class of 2018, and she is a drone pilot. She just got her drone pilot certification that you can see there. And again, she just does beautiful work and has really enjoyed having her Mavic. She doesn't have a Mavic 2. She bought a Mavic, I think they just called it the Mavic, before the Mavic 2 came out. When the Mavic 2 came out, the Mavic prices dropped about $200 or $300, and she was able to get some very inexpensive, a very inexpensive drone, a very nice drone for, again, a affordable price. She did kind of a reel, kind of a video that kind of shows off the drone work that she's done when she did a California vacation. So I'll show this to you. It's very fast. When it loads, it's very fast. I'll also show you the video that she produced for her honors thesis. So she was an honors student, and she did a photo story on a topic that interested her about a couple, a retired man and woman who were activists trying to bring in solar power to the central Indiana area. So she decided to do a photo story on them, and kind of late in the process, we decided that we'd try to make it a video. Going out with Ryan Sparrow, Ryan shot a couple of drone shots for her video, and you'll see them incorporated into her storytelling here. So I'll go ahead and share this. It's titled Solar Activity.
Well, I see a lot of rooftops out there, and I think of each of them as another opportunity.
Carolyn and John Van, two Muncie residents in their mid-70s who have backgrounds in physics, chemistry, biology, and marketing, retired from their life of traveling and working around the world and teaching at Ball State to settle down in a quaint 68-acre lot in Springport, Indiana. But in the fall of 2017, their retirement became focused on volunteering their time and efforts to contribute to the Solarize East Central Indiana movement, a movement that allowed them to take their passion for greenness into the community to encourage people to go solar. The Vans' advocacy could not have come at a better time. The need to go solar is greater now with the political climate and physical condition the environment is in. Benefits of going solar include a 30% federal tax credit, 15 years of net metering, installations with pre-tariff panels, and the Vans group rate they negotiated with their installer saves people an additional 20% on their installation. Plus, if businesses go solar, they can depreciate their first year of tax expenses. The time is now, as panel prices will only go up while net metering will go down, and by 2020, the federal tax credit goes away entirely. All of these factors are reasons why the Vans have presented all over the Muncie community and have recruited almost 30 homeowners to save money on electricity and help the environment, while also combating the way Indiana legislation perceives renewable energy.
I think that solar looks good on homes. To me, that looks like they care about the environment, and I like to see that. But I also feel good when I turn on my little app and see all the solar being generated. It makes me happy.
Other examples. This is something that, again, the head of photojournalism at USA Today and Gannett, Andy Scott, had shared with me, and also it's a video that he showed last year at the Northern Shore course. This is from the Des Moines Register.
Start workout.
Running's been my saving grace. There's been times where I've crossed the finish line and I've set a personal record, and I've been overjoyed with tears afterwards. And some runners get it. They get the fact that, you cry afterwards. most of them will never know, that runner right there has a child that had cancer and passed away. And he's running his 100. Armstrong was he was a fiery little kid. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and if you saw his face, he would melt your heart in a second. And when he passed, for 6 weeks, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where life was going to take me. Running has been my savior because the fact that it keeps his memory alive within me. And so what I do is I try and pass it forward by running the names of other kids. So basically it looks like that. And then screenshot it. And save. When somebody loses somebody, that's kind of my advice to them is life will never be the same. You'll have tears, you'll laugh, and you'll see things that God presents that you'll just be like, wow, I would have never saw that.
Okay then, as you can see, really great storytelling on the part of Gannett, and again, that video really illustrates how drones are worked into the narrative and worked into the storytelling to really help motivate the story really well. So before we wrap this up, I would be remiss if I did not show you the tremendous and beautiful work that our own Ryan Sparrow does with drones. There he is with our, of course, with our NPPA Ball State chapter doing kind of a drone workshop. That was about a year ago or more. Well, probably 2 years ago because there's Katie Sullivan and Bree there. So, and that's his Mavic. That's his Mavic 1, original Mavic. So again, I pulled some work that he has shared with the world and with us off of on Facebook and on Instagram, and again, I just can't say enough how beautiful the work that he does using drones really is. So again, it's a really good example of combining the technical with a really creative eye and a really creative interpretation. That's a colorized black and white that he did. As you know, he likes to travel. Photographing a tree straight down. You really seem to like that beach a lot, and that's understandable. Railroad cars, the fair. Again, so he just has done really beautiful work, and again, it's an example of how you can use drones to really come back with pretty special images. So that's really all I have for you today. Again, I would suggest to you that it's not crucial that you get a drone license, but again, I do think it's helpful. It's good to know how to do, and it would make you more marketable. So I'd certainly encourage you, if you can, and if it is right for you, to consider that as an option. There's a picture I shot tonight on the dog walk, and that's Bill Foley there with Sophie and me and Zelda, and I I think I'm going to call it a day and hit the trail. Remember, we have live class on Thursday. Take care, and I'll see you then.